صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة يا غريب الغرباء يا مظلوم كربلاء السلام على من جعل الله الشفاء في تربته السلام على من الإجابة تحت قبته السلام على ساكن كربلاء فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي يا سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما أما بعد عن أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام عن النبي صلى الله عليه وآله أن جبرائيل أخبره بقتل الحسين عليه السلام إلى أن قال فقلت هل يزوره أحد فقال جبرائيل يزوره الغرباء قلت فما لمن زاره من الثواب قال يكتب ثواب 1000 حجة و1000 عمرة كلها معك يا رسول الله صدق النبي وآمنا به. أما بعد, respected viewers, this is the land of Karbala, the land of grief, the land of trials, the land of tribulation. Karbala, the land of grief. And today, the day of Arbaeen. The day when Sayyida Zainab and the rest of the Sabaya and the Imam al-Sajjad returned back to Karbala. And our 11th Imam al-Askari salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, in one of his narrations has mentioned that from the 5 alamat or the 5 signs of a mu'min, one of them is the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein on the day of Arbaeen, and the rewards that are attached to the ziyarah of Arbaeen show us the importance and the significance of this great act of worship, the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Sometimes when you want to understand the significance or the importance of a given action within the Sharia, within the religion, then you look at the rewards that are attached to that action. For through the great rewards you are able to understand the significance of that action. And the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada is one of those important aspects of our religion whose rewards aslan cannot even be comprehended by the human mind. This hadith that we recited, or this hadith which we narrated in the beginning, which is narrated in Kamilul Ziyarat, narrated by Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, narrated by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, in that Amirul Mu'mineen narrates from Rasulullah that Jibreel descended upon me and he narrated to me the incident of the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein. Once he narrated this incident, Rasulullah says to him, فَقُلْتْ, yani Rasulullah is speaking, فَقُلْتْ هَلْ يَزُورُهُ أَحَدٌ. Rasulullah asks Jibreel, is there anybody who is going to visit my son Hussein after his martyrdom? فقال جبرائيل, the replies from Jibreel, يزوره الغرباء. The people who will visit him are the ghuraba, from the word gharib, yani strangers, people from faraway lands. In the reality of the meaning is that people from every corner of the world will flock and come to visit Imam al-Hussein, will come to visit your grandson Hussein, Ya Rasulullah. The response of Rasulullah, he asked Jibreel, the next question, فَيَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ فَمَا لِمَنْ زَارَهُ مِنَ الثَّوَابِ. What is the reward of the person who visits my son Imam al-Hussein? The answer of Jibreel is قال, يعني Jibreel, يكتب or يكتب له ثواب ألف حجة وألف عمرة. Ya Rasulullah, the person who goes to visit Imam al-Hussein, the thawab for him, the thawab that is written is as if he has performed 1,000 Hajj and 1,000 Umrah. But Jibreel continues, this is not any normal Hajj, not any normal Umrah. The Jibreel goes on to say, يكتب له ثواب ألف حجة وألف عمرة كلها معك يا رسول الله. Jibreel says the reward of visiting Imam al-Hussein is the same reward a person would have got if he participated in the rituals and the manasik of 1,000 Hajj and 1,000 Umrah with Rasulullah. Allahu Akbar. Enter Janab, we are born, our generation, we are born 1400 years after the martyrdom of Rasulullah. The mu'min, the Muslim has in his heart when he reads through Islamic history and when he goes for the rituals and the rites of Hajj and he wishes, he says, I wish I lived during the time of Rasulullah such that I would have seen him with my own eyes. I would have been in his company. I would have recited Salatul Jama'ah behind him. Sometimes a mu'min has these sentiments within him because of this ishq and this love and this connection, this attachment that he has with Rasulullah, the final messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of His mercy tells us, if you want to get the rewards of this sentiment, Yani enta mu'min, if you feel or if you want the reward of performing tawaf around the Kaaba with Rasulullah, if you want the thawab or you want to experience the sensation of doing sa'i between Safa and Marwa in the company of Rasulullah, if you wanted to participate in the Jamarat with Rasulullah, if you wanted to participate in the rites of Muzdalifah with Rasulullah, come and visit Sayyid al-Shuhada Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. All this thawab is written for you. Allahu Akbar. And on a day like this, Yawmul Arbaeen, you find in the land of Karbala al-Muqaddas, millions of people have flocked towards Imam al-Hussein to come and pay tribute and pledge allegiance to him, to honor the sacrifice which he carried out in the 61st year after Hijrah. Because of this sacrifice, you and I, brothers and sisters, have a religion and have a deen to follow today. Ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein shapes the Shia's identity. Our entire identity revolves around the advent and the sacrifice of Imam al-Hussein in Karbala. This is our identity. This is how we are recognized in the dunya. This is how we are going to be recognized in the akhirah, starting from the barzakh, and this is how we are going to identify ourselves in the mahshar on the day of judgment as being those who are Husseini, those who spent their lives mourning and serving and living by the values of Sayyid al-Shuhada Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and performing the ziyarah of al-Hussein on every other day and every other occasion has its own merits, but one of the outstanding merits is performing the ziyarah on the day of Arbaeen. And you look at this institution of the visitation of Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, in that over a period of 1400 years, this institution has been threatened, and this institution has been attacked, and this institution has been faced with a number of challenges, yet it has defied every challenge across the passage of time. One of the ulama, they narrate an incident during the time of Imam as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Our sixth Imam encouraged one of the Shias to go for ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. What is apparent is that the Imam was in Hijaz, in Medina at that time. This companion narrates his ziyarah to Imam al-Hussein in Karbala. He narrates his experience. At that time, during the time of Imam as-Sadiq, what is apparent that this ziyarah occurred during the later stages of the life of Imam as-Sadiq, when the government began to oppress Imam as-Sadiq, when they began to cut down and began to censor the Shias and began to restrict the movement of the Shias, such that even visitation and performing the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada was not possible. Person would risk his life if he went for ziyarah. Person risked execution if he went for ziyarah. His property would be confiscated. His family could be killed. Yet during these difficult times, you find that Imam al-Hussein didn't tell the people don't go for ziyarah or refrain from performing the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. No, you find that Imam al-Sadiq goes on and encourages the people. In fact, he tells one of his companions, Muawiyah ibn Wahab, he says to him, يا معاوية لا تدعه يعني زيارة الحسين عليه السلام لخوف من أحد. Do not leave the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein out of fear for anybody. You would think that at times when the Shias are being massacred and they are oppressed and living under a tyrannical regime, you would think that the Imam would tell the people, don't perform ziyarah. La, you find the Imam opposite. He tells them, don't leave the ziyarah, even during times of fear, even during times of khawf. You have a fear over your life or your property. He says, no, uphold this ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein, for indeed it has got its own benefits, and the hadith is long. The point being that Imam encouraged them. This person says that I would travel from Medina all the way to Karbala al-Muqaddas, a journey that would take you weeks on a camel or on a horse. He says that when we used to travel from town to town or from village to village, we would be scared. We would travel in the middle of the night. When we leave our homes for ziyarah, we would not tell our friends, neither would we tell our relatives, in case from us telling our relatives and telling our friends, perhaps my relative goes and tells another relative, and a relative tells somebody else, and that somebody else tells Fulan, and that Fulan goes to the regime or goes to the governor or goes to the police officers, for example, and this person gets arrested or his family gets executed. Look at the situation in which the Shias used to perform the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein during the time of Imam as-Sadiq. How a person leaves from home, he doesn't even tell his extended family that he's going for ziyarah out of fear. He couldn't trust anybody. The person leaves his home, he writes his will, but he doesn't know if he's going to return back or no. But determination, love, ishq, wilayah for Imam al-Hussein. They would travel in the villages during the night on their horses, and they would rest during the daytime. They would travel at night such that they are not seen by forces of the oppressive regime of Bani Abbas. They would travel during the night and they would rest during the daytime until they would get to Karbala. And Karbala at that time, there was no Haram al-Sharif, there was no Dhari', there were no buildings, there were no residents, there were no shops. The closest village, according to this scholar, he says, was around the area of Hindiya, few distance, or maybe some kilometers away from the shrine or from the grave of Imam al-Hussein. They would wait over there in the darkness of the night, midnight, just a little after midnight, when it is pitch dark. They would not even perform ziyarah when the full moon is shining, because from the moonlight they might be spotted by one of the enemy forces, by the government. They had put a number of people at a parameter some kilometers around the grave of Imam al-Hussein, and their job was to prevent the zawar. If they catch you, they execute you, they sever your limbs, they crucify you on a palm tree if you are caught visiting Imam al-Hussein. So the zawar would go, they would hide in these villages in the middle of the night. On a dark night, pitch dark, they would come running, perform their ziyarah and go back. Ba'ad, there was no dhari', there was no kubba, there was no haram al-sharif. Even a stone, like a tombstone, to show the mark of the grave of Imam al-Hussein, even that didn't exist. What you see in Jannatul Baqi today, during that time of Imam al-Sadiq, even that didn't exist, because they went through every effort to try and demolish the traces of the grave of Imam al-Hussein. And even the Bani Abbas, who came later on during the time of Imam al-Hadi, you see the destruction and the number of times that they destroyed the haram of Imam al-Hussein. The Za'ir says, coming back to our initial narration, the Za'ir says we would travel in the darkness of the night, village to village. There is no mawkibs, there is no resting place, there is no one to welcome you with open hands and give you food. You suffer pain of hunger and thirst and fear of loss of life. You travel in the darkness of the night from village to village. He says, until I reached the final village around Karbala, some kilometers away from the grave of Imam al-Hussein. And I would wait until midnight or a little bit after midnight so that I go visit Imam al-Hussein in the darkness. Tayyib, a person might ask, if there was no gravestone and there was no kubba and there was no dhari, how did they know where is the qabr of Imam al-Hussein? The exact position of the grave of Imam al-Hussein was a secret that was maintained by the Shias during these intense times of oppression which they suffered under Bani Abbas. Those people who had previously gone for ziyarah, they would tell only those people who they had trust in. For example, when you reach Karbala in this Fulan village from Nainava, for example, you take an X number of steps from a certain landmark, then you walk 50 steps south of that landmark and another 100 steps west from that landmark, for example, and then you will reach the grave of Imam al-Hussein. And they say at that time, the grave of Imam al-Hussein, the place where he was buried, was recognized because the earth on top of the grave had a sweet scent of tufah. Tufah yani apple. And this is a metaphorical meaning or a metaphorical example which is given for a heavenly scent, which is why the Za'ir says, we would crawl on the earth of Karbala and we would smell the dust until we got to the place which smelled of a heavenly apple, and we knew that this is the qabr of Imam al-Hussein. We would kiss this grave. He says, I would kiss this grave, or we would kiss this grave. We would say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. 3 times recite a 2 rak'ah salah and quickly return back. This was our entire ziyarah. 2 weeks of suffering, difficulty in journey, difficulty in that your life, you may lose your life. All this to come to the grave, say salam on Imam al-Hussein 3 times, recite a 2 rakah salah and go. This narrator mentions, I was waiting to go and visit Imam al-Hussein, so I waited till the middle of the night. When I was going to dash to the grave of Imam al-Hussein, I found a person in front of me who stopped me. He said, who are you? Where are you going? Now the narrator is telling us. He says, from the way this person stopped me and asked me where I was going, from his tone, I understood that he is one of us. Yani he's a Shia. And not from the Mukhalif, not from the Nawasib. So I said to him, I want to visit the grave of Imam al-Hussein. This person says to him, you cannot go right now, return back after 1 hour. The Rawi, or the narrator, returned back. He comes after an hour, 2 hours. He finds the same person. He tells him, stop, you cannot go to visit Imam al-Hussein. Come back after another 2 hours. The narrator says to him, Shaykhuna, if I return back after 2 hours, it will almost be the time of Fajr. At the crack of dawn, if the light starts to appear, the guards who are preventing people from the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein might wake up, might see me and refuse me or kill me. I've traveled a great distance, let me visit Imam al-Hussein. Why do you stop me, and who are you? By the way, who are you? This person says to the narrator, I am an angel from the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is in the form of a human being, protecting the grave of Imam al-Hussein. Said to him, if you are an angel, why do you prevent me from visiting Imam al-Hussein? The angel said to him, this time is reserved for Musa ibn Imran alayhi salam. Nabi Musa Kalimullah asks permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to visit Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. This is his time for the ziyarah. Once he completes the ziyarah, enter, come back. Allah. We have the ziyarah, we have within the Kamilul Ziyarat numerous texts that mention there is not a single prophet within the heavens from 124,000 prophets, except that each and every one of them seek permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to perform the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Enter ya Za'ir, when you come to Karbala al-Muqaddas and you look at this Qubba and you stand under the Qubba and you face the Dhari al-Mubarak, know that if the veils of the ghaib were to be lifted from in front of your eyes, you would be in the company of Nabi Isa and Musa and Adam and Sheeth and Harun and Shu'aib and all the other prophets. This narrator says, just before Fajr, I tried again for a third time to visit Imam al-Hussein. The angel let me through. I visited Imam, did my salam 3 times, kissed his grave, recited 2 rakah salah and went. Look at the difficulty in which the people used to perform ziyarah from the time of Imam al-Sadiq, and compare it to the manner in which ziyarah is performed today. Alhamdulillah wa shukr, and this is a ni'mah from the numerous ni'mas of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the Za'ir is able to perform the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada and Mawlana Abul Fadl al-Abbas with all the ease and all the facilities. Allah, Allah. You find number of people, even from the West, that when they come for the Ziyarat Arbaeen, they begin the ziyarah with the visitation of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi in Najaf al-Ashraf, and then from Najaf to Karbala, this distance of 90 odd kilometers, they walk. So they come visiting Imam al-Hussein on foot. You ask these zawars, the mawakib, these people, these khuddam, these servants of Imam al-Hussein, from the time you leave Najaf to the time you leave Karbala, there is not a single step that you will take except that you have a person who is standing by the side of your road or standing in front of you ready to offer you with food or water or drink or accommodation. They beg you to eat from their food, because you are a Za'ir of Imam Hussein, the visitor of Imam al-Hussein. They find pleasure, honor, and dignity in serving Imam al-Hussein and the visitors of Imam al-Hussein. You find people this time in our walk, and this is something that I personally witnessed, if I'm not mistaken, 30 or 40 kilometers out of Najaf. So once you have covered a distance of 30 to 40 kilometers, there was a group of shuyukh, scholars from the Hawza Ilmiya of Najaf al-Ashraf, mu'ammams wearing their turbans, scholars of Ahlul Bayt, people who preach the religion of Ahlul Bayt, people, scholars who are imams of Jama'ah, Imamul Jama'ah. They lead the Salatul Jama'ah in their respective centers or mosques. These group of shuyukh who study Ba'thul Kharij under the ulama, the flag bearers of the religion within the ghaibah of the 12th Imam, you find them on the days of Arbaeen. They leave their job, they leave their studying, they leave their duties, and they come and they serve the servants and they serve the visitors of Imam al-Hussein. This time I saw a mawkib of shuyukh, students from the Hawza Ilmiya, massaging the feet of the zawar of Imam al-Hussein. Allahu Akbar. Eve, to serve the visitors of Imam al-Hussein is a point of fakhr, honor, pride. People save up money the entire year in order to facilitate and serve food to the zawar of Imam al-Hussein. This time round, the number of incidences are numerous. But from the number of children, what is fascinating is the tarbiyah of the children. This great nation, the people of Iraq, who have served the zawar of Imam al-Hussein and who teach their children to serve the zawar of Imam al-Hussein. Haniyan lahum. Congratulations to them, for they are purchasing Jannah through servitude for Imam al-Hussein. And this is a lesson that we need to take from the people and implement in our respective hometowns and cities in the West. You find a child, there are numerous incidences that Zawar will tell you. A young girl, perhaps she was not more than 6 or 7 years of age, covered in dust from head to toe, from the dust and bad open space, desert, wind is blowing sometimes. She is covered in dust and she is holding her small hands, she is holding a plate of kebab. She's saying, Ya Za'ir, Ya Za'ir. She's crying out to the visitors of Imam al-Hussein, this is tabarruk, this is food that has been cooked for the love of Imam al-Hussein, please eat one. We walked by her, we said to her, thank you, my dear little girl. She was a young child. We said, thank you, but no thanks. We passed. She held on to my sleeve and she says to me, I promise to God that my mother cooks the most delicious kebabs. Try one. Ajib. 3 or 4 year old girl. For Imam al-Hussein. These are families that are not using their savings to serve Imam al-Hussein. La, this is their livelihood. People who struggle in their daily lives, People who perhaps eat 1 or 2 meals a day, 1 meal a day, they sacrifice their meal in order to provide that meal for the zawar of Imam al-Hussein. This generosity, this love for Imam al-Hussein, this ishq for Imam al-Hussein, this love, this atmosphere of generosity and love between the Shias of Ali Muhammad. Who is the one who brings us close like this? Who is the one who inspires us to attain or to create new benchmarks when it comes to generosity? It is the master of paradise, Sayyid Shabab Ahl al-Jannah. This mawkib, these mawakib, and these walks and this service that is provided, ajib, something that perhaps no other culture, no other faith, no other madhab can experience or has access to. This power of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And as a gesture or a token of gratitude, a hadith for those people who serve in the mawakib or who spend money to facilitate for the ziyarah of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. The hadith which is narrated by Ibn Sinan, an Ibn Sinan, an Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Ibn Sinan narrates on authority of Imam al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. This narration can be found in Wasa'il al-Shia, volume 10. He says, in the lengthy conversation, Ibn Sinan says, فَمَا لِمَنْ يُنْفِقُ فِي الْمَسِيرِ إِلَىٰ أَبِيكَ الْحُسَيْنِ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ. What is the reward of a person who spends money in the way of the ziyarah of your grandfather Imam al-Hussein? فقال, يعني Imam al-Sadiq, يا ابن سنان يحسب له بالدرهم 1000 حتى عد 10 ويرفع له من الدرجات مثلها ورضا الله خير له ودعاء محمد صلى الله عليه وآله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ودعاء أمير المؤمنين والأئمة عليهم السلام خير له. Imam al-Sadiq says, Ya ibn Sinan, for every dirham you spend for the sake of Imam al-Hussein or in the way of Imam al-Hussein, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will compensate you with 1,000. For every dirham you spend, Allah will give you 1,000 and 1,000 and 1,000 and 1,000 until he repeated this 10 times. 1,000 times 1,000, yani times 1,000 times 1,000, 10 times. And then he goes on to say, Imam al-Sadiq, and on top of all this, the same amount, millions of dirhams which you get in compensation back, recompensation, you are raised by the same number of levels in Jannah, darajat. And he says, even better than that, Ya ibn Sinan, know that you have gained the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Ya ibn Sinan, more than this compensation, know that for every dirham that you spend in the way of Imam al-Hussein, Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'mineen and the A'imma do dua for you. Allahu Akbar. Is there any greater honor than for a person? Is there any greater honor for a person other than the fact that Rasulullah Khatamin Nabiyyin is doing dua for you? And Janab, you spend $5 in the way of Imam al-Hussein to facilitate the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. $5 spent on a mawkib to feed the zawar of Imam al-Hussein. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Qasimun Nari wal Jannah does dua for you. This Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, who is the divider of heaven and hell, does dua for you. Imam al-Sadiq tells us, for congratulations to all those people who have served in the mawakib, in any capacity. For Imam al-Sadiq doesn't put any limitation. And this should also be a point of encouragement for us living in the West. Next year, this coming Arbaeen, for the coming year, we plan from now that between Najaf and Karbala, we should have a mawqif from London, have a mawqif from Manchester, have a mawqif from Scotland, have a mawqif from every country in the Europe, have a mawqif from every state within the United States. Let there be a mawqif California, mawqif Texas, mawqif Montreal, mawqif Ottawa, mawqif Toronto. Amir al-Mu'mineen Rasulullah is doing dua for those who serve Imam al-Hussein and the visitors of Imam al-Hussein. But the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein, in terms, when you look at the numbers that have gathered here in Karbala, and I believe official figures or official statistics are yet to be published by the ministry, but from what is visible and what is apparent, according to those who are experts and are surveying the numbers, by far 100% that the number of people who are visiting Imam al-Hussein this year exceeds and surpasses the 20 odd or 25 odd million people who did ziyarah last year. So this year's numbers is going to be greater than this 20 or 25 million number that was published last year. In addition to these 20-25 million people who are performing the ziyarah, if only we could see what is happening in the heavens and above the Qubbah and around the Dharih of Imam al-Hussein. Allahu Akbar. Apart from the fact, which we mentioned earlier on, that there is not a single prophet within the heavens except that he seeks permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to perform the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. The book Kamilu Ziyarat, which I recommend each and every person to try and obtain a copy of this book and read the fada'il and the merits and the significance of performing the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. For sure this book is translated in English. Kamilu Ziyarat. The narration mentions in regards to now what is happening, in addition to these 124,000 prophets who are ascending and descending and performing the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein, there are congregations of malaika who right now as we speak and right now as the millions of people are performing the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein and touching the dhari of Imam al-Hussein and standing bayn al-Haramain and surrounding Karbala, as they look at the Qubbah of Imam al-Hussein at this point in time, there are thousands and thousands of angels surrounding and circumambulating around the Qubbah and the dhari of Imam al-Hussein. Look at this hadith, which is narrated again by Imam al-Sadiq. An Ambasah an Abi Abdullah alayhi salam qala sami'tuhu yaqul, one of the companions of Imam al-Sadiq by the name of Ambasah, he says, I heard the Imam say, وَكَّلَ اللَّهُ بِكَبْرِ الْحُسَيْنِ ibn Ali alayhimus salam 70,000 Malik. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has appointed at the grave of Husain ibn Ali alayhimus salam 70,000 angels. يَعْبُدُونَ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ. They are constantly worshipping, they are in a state of worship, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala around the grave of Imam al-Hussein. الصلاة الواحدة من صلاة أحدهم تعدل 1000 صلاة من صلاة الآدميين. A single salat from one of these 70,000 angels one salat from one angel is equivalent to all the salat prayed by the entire mankind. One salat of one angel is equivalent to all the salat prayed by the entire mankind. How many of these angels are there? 70,000. Shufu, what happens? The hadith goes on to say, Imam as-Sadiq, يَكُونْ ثَوَابَ صَلَاتِهِمْ لِزُوَّارِ كَبْرِ الْحُسَيْنِ عليه الصلاة والسلام وعلى قاتله لعنة الله والملائكة أجمعين أبد العابدين. Imam as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi says that the reward of the ibadah of these 70,000 angels, one salat is equivalent to the salat of the entire mankind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the reward of the ibadat of these 70,000 angels to the zawar of Imam al-Hussein. Congratulations to each and every Za'ir who has come to Karbala al-Muqaddas and has attained these great rewards, which is a manifestation of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam al-Hussein, Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah, is a doorway and a manifestation of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is through him that the mercy of the Lord of the universe is manifested. How merciful is our Lord, because we approach him through the door of Imam al-Hussein salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. فأنتم زوار مشاهدين, our viewers, wherever you are in the world, if you did not get a chance to visit Imam al-Hussein during Arbaeen this year, then make chance or make amendments and may have strong determination and plan your vacations and plan your annual leave appropriately and accordingly from now, so you do not miss out on this great chance of being part of the Ziyarat Arbaeeniyah. And insha'Allah, the tawfiq is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, in addition to all the significance that surrounds it, and the significances or the importances are numerous, but again there is adab and there is akhlaq of ziyarah. And perhaps over the last few nights, as the channel has been broadcasting, and we are blessed that the channel is constantly able, Imam Hussein TV is constantly able to provide the viewers with live footage and live feed of what is happening inside of Karbala, within the shrines of Imam al-Hussein and Imam al-Abbas and Bain al-Haramain. And sometimes when you view these footages and you view these live feeds, I'm sure anta mu'min sitting on the other side of the television screen, it is as if your heart is in Karbala through the barakah of these footages that are brought to us by the channel like channel Imam Hussein TV. Look at the adab and the akhlaq of the ziyarah. Again, it is narrated by Imam as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. He says, إذا أردت زيارة الحسين عليه السلام فزره وأنت كثيب حزين مكروب شعثا مغبرا جائعا عطشانا فإن الحسين عليه السلام قتل حزينا مكروبا شعثا مغبرا جائعا عطشانا. Imam as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi says, when you visit Imam al-Hussein, kalam to you ya Za'ir, when you visit Imam al-Hussein, visit him while you are hungry, visit him while you are thirsty, visit him while you are heartbroken, overcome with grief, and visit him while you are covered in dust, in sand, in dirt, in this deceived appearance. Visit Imam al-Hussein. Why? Because Imam al-Sadiq says, indeed, this is the manner in which Imam al-Hussein was killed. Sayyid al-Shuhada was killed while he was hungry, while he was thirsty, while he was covered in sand. Imam Sahib al-Amri wa Zamal in Ziyarat al-Nahiya says, Assalamu ala al-Khadd al-Tarib. Peace be upon that cheek that was covered with the sand, or that fell on the sands of Karbala. Imam al-Sadiq says, visit your Imam while you are, and Imam al-Hussein was heartbroken, filled with grief. The hadith, or the 12th Imam in Ziyarat al-Nahiya says that he would look right and he would look left, and he is surrounded by the enemies, and through the galloping of the enemies he would look towards his tent and he would look at his women. Visit Imam al-Hussein while you are hungry, thirsty, covered in dirt and dust, and your heart is overcome with grief and anguish. Which is why you must have noticed, and those of the Zuwar who are present here, you find that a number of people who come to visit Imam al-Hussein, they cover their dresses or their dishdashas or their clothes with teen, with mud on their chests, on their backs, on their arms, on their head, and on their faces. And in this manner, couple of kilometers before entering Karbala, they stop eating, they stop drinking, hungry, thirsty, tired, walking after 3 days from Najaf. Those who are walking from Basra 15 days, covered in dust and mud and sand, they come and they visit Imam al-Hussein and they acknowledge his sacrifice and pledge allegiance to him. Imam al-Sadiq says, visit your Imam in this state, because this is how he died. Adab and akhlaq of ziyarah. When you look at the significance of the ziyarah, in our opening statement we said that the significance of an action or the importance of an action can be seen or can be understood through the greatness of the reward which is attached to it. Look at the rewards that are attached with the visitation or the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. 1,000 Hajj and 1,000 Umrah in the company of Rasulullah. Look at the insistence of Imam al-Sadiq in that even during times of fear, he commands his companions, he tells them, do not leave the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein, even if it is at the risk of your life. Look at the insistence. The fact that there are malaika who are surrounding the dome of Hussein, who are surrounding the dhari of Imam al-Hussein. They do istighfar, and the thawab of their ibadat, which is equivalent to the ibadat of the entire universe and mankind, is gifted to the zair of Imam al-Hussein. Why this insistence and why this insistence on ziyarah? Why were the Imams so insistent? Why are the rewards so great for visiting Imam al-Hussein? The question here is, what does the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein symbolize or represent? Again, the answers are numerous. We shall discuss in very brief 3. The importance of the ziyarah, or if you wish, the philosophy of ziyarah, or if you wish, say what the ziyarah symbolizes. 3 things. Number 1, it is a pledge of allegiance to Sayyid al-Shuhada. Hadith by Imam al-Ridha salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh, where he says, Inna li kulli imamin ahdan fi unuki awliyaihi wa shi'atih wa inna min tamamil wafa bil ahdi ziyaratu kuburihim. Imam al-Ridha salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi says, indeed, for every imam, his awliya and his shi'as are bound by a covenant. Inna li kulli imamin ahdan fi unuki awliyaihi wa shi'ati. Every imam who has followers and who has shia, who has lovers, these shi'as and these lovers are bound to the imam by a covenant, ahd, like how you say for the dua for our 12th Imam Sahibul Amri wa Zaman, which is recommended that we recite every morning after Fajr. Dua al-Ahad. Ahad means covenant. Covenant, which covenant? Yani pledge of allegiance. What does a pledge of allegiance signify? Your loyalty towards the Imam. Which is why in Dua al-Ahad, you say to the Imam that, write me, or you say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make me from amongst his companions, from his Ansar and his Ashab. And if I die before the Dhuhr of the 12th Imam, then raise me from my grave in my coffin, waving my sword, ready to help the Imam. Ahd, yani covenant. The covenant meaning pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance, yani unconditional loyalty to the Imam. Therefore, if you claim to be a Shia and you claim to be a lover of Ahlul Bayt, Imam al-Ridha says that you have a covenant and a pledge of allegiance through which you are bound to that Imam. Then the Imam goes on to say, وَإِنَّ مِن تَمَامِ الْوَفَاءِ بِالْعَهْدِ زِيَارَةُ قُبُورِهِمْ. Indeed, min tamam al-wafa, the peak or the best way, the most complete way of showing your loyalty to the Imam is through the visitation of his grave. Allahu Akbar. If you want to symbolize or you want to show your loyalty towards Imam al-Hussein, or rather, if you want to express the peak of your loyalty towards Imam al-Hussein or any other Imam, Imam al-Ridha says, this peak of loyalty is manifested through your visitation of the grave of that Imam. فَمَنْ زَارَهُمْ رَغْبَةً فِي زِيَارَتِهِمْ وَتَصْدِيقًا بِمَا رَغَبُوا عَلَيْهَا كَانَ أَئِمَّتُهُمْ شُفَعَاؤُهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. The person who visits the Imam with this intention, wanting nothing else but proximity towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wanting nothing more than to fulfill his pledge and oath and covenant towards the Imam, Imam al-Ridha says on the Day of Judgment that Imam will be the one who will do shafa'ah for you. But our point over here is what? That enter Janab, when you as a Shia, Mu'min, Ithna, Ashari claim to be from the followers of Ahlul Bayt and the followers of Imam al-Hussein and the lover of Imam al-Hussein, Imam al-Ridha says the best way to express your love, the complete way to express your love, or that action which will complete your loyalty towards the Imam, or that action which demonstrates your loyalty towards the Imam, is the ziyarah of that Imam. Enter, you claim to be a lover of Imam al-Hussein. The best way to express your loyalty towards Imam al-Hussein is through the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein Aba Abdullah salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. The words of Imam al-Ridha. And therefore you find that enter when you come here to Karbala al-Muqaddas. If there was any difficulty, then it is absolutely easy to welcome those difficulties. Rather, you face those difficulties with a smile, because this is nothing. These difficulties are minor obstacles in the way of pledging loyalty towards the Imam. They shouldn't be a barrier. They shouldn't be a prevention. They should not prevent you from pledging your loyalty towards Imam al-Hussein. When you stand and when you understand that the ziyarah is a pledge of allegiance to Imam al-Hussein, the person's perspective of ziyarah changes. In that inter-janab, when you stand in front of the dharih, you stand in front of the qubba with a heart that is broken and tears streaming down your cheeks, you say to Imam al-Hussein that even though I was not there in the 61st year after Hijrah when you were martyred and your family was taken captives, I was not there to help you. I was not there to respond to that call which you made, Hal min Nasirin Yansurna, but here I am today, Sayyid al-Shuhada, here in Karbala, here by your grave, pledging my allegiance and responding to your call. Here I am today to ensure that the message for which you were sacrificed, I shall uphold that message. And I have come here to Karbala to acknowledge and to pay tribute to your sacrifice and to ensure that your legacy never fades with the passage of time. This is the philosophy of ziyarah. This is the meaning of ziyarah. Ziyarat Arbaeen is a pledge of loyalty. Ziyarat Arbaeen, the text of this ziyarah, you make it absolutely clear in the presence of Imam al-Hussein, not at the grave of Imam al-Hussein, because we have the hadith that states and the ziyarah text within the ziyarah that state Imam al-Hussein is watching over us and he recognizes and welcomes the zawar. Inshallah, if we have time, we will go over that hadith. But the Ziyarah Al-Arba'een is a pledge of loyalty where you are choosing allegiance, or you are choosing between two parties, that you are aligning yourself with the party of Imam al-Hussein, which is the party of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the party of Haqq. In the last part of the Ziyarah, you say to Imam al-Hussein, فَمَعَكُمْ مَعَكُمْ لَا مَعَ عَدُوِّكُمْ. In the whole part of the ziyarah, وَنُصْرَةِ لَكُمْ مُعَدَّةٌ, my help for you is everlasting, and I side with you. فَمَعَكُمْ مَعَكُمْ لَا مَعَ عَدُوِّكُمْ. I am with you, Ya Imam al-Hussein. I choose to be under your flag. I choose to be under your leadership. I choose to live my life according to the values that you preached. I am on the deen that you propagated. La ma'a aduwikum, and not on the deen of your enemies, not in the camp of your enemies. I disassociate myself from them and from their actions and their belief and their thoughts and their mentality and everything to do with them. Ma'akum ma'akum la ma'a aduwikum. This is an oath and this is a pledge that you take in the Ziyaratul Arba'een at the Haram of Imam al-Hussein. A person who recites these verses of this ziyarah with contemplation and understanding, how strong of an effect does it have on his soul? But when a person recites this in the presence of Imam al-Hussein, insha'Allah, with the niyyah and with sincerity, and even if he or she is not perfect, he makes a determination, he makes an oath that from today I shall try to improve myself in the way of Imam al-Hussein. Even if I'm not the best of followers when it comes to my furu ad-din, but at least in my aqidah, I will try to make sure that I do not side with the enemies of Imam al-Hussein, or side with those enemies or those people who oppose the commemoration of Imam al-Hussein. Ziyarat Arbaeen is a ziyarah which pushes a person towards making firm resolutions in life. Resolution that you will stand up for haqq, because Imam Hussein represented haqq. فَمَعَكُمْ مَعَكُمْ لَا مَعَ أَدُوِّكُمْ. I will stand up for haqq even if it costs me my position, my life, my wealth, my everything. For you, Imam al-Hussein, I will stand up. This inspiration, this spiritual power comes from the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. Therefore, the ziyarah of Arba'een, number one, represents your pledge of allegiance and your loyalty. Ma'akum ma'akum la ma'a aduwikum. These words have a great effect on the soul of a person. And by between the brackets, that person should recite Ziyaratul Arba'een wherever he is in the world, even if this year he was not able to perform the blessed ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. And inshallah next year, everybody who did not get a chance to perform ziyarah this year gets the tawfiq of performing the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada next year, inshallah. And those who perform the ziyarah this year, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them another chance next year. And together as a Shia community, as a Shia ummah, we need to unite with each other, Shias, and we need to ensure that under the banner of Imam al-Hussein we unite, and we set a target that next year we should aim to have 50 million Shias inside of Karbala visiting Imam al-Hussein for Arba'een. 50 million people, it can happen. It's not far-fetched. And there are two others reasons that symbolize the significance of the philosophy of the ziyarah. Inshallah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us an opportunity, we shall discuss about that. Today being the day of Arba'een, it's a day of grief and a day of mourning. When the people come and they visit Imam al-Hussein and they visit Abul Fadl al-Abbas, they pay their condolences to the Imam. They also give their condolences to Sayyida Zainab al-Kubra, because this is the day that she returned to Karbala after this ordeal and this tragedy of being taken prisoner, of being taken as prisoners from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham. When they were finally released from Sham, and they were released from Sham not because of kindness within the heart of Yazid al-La'in or sympathy that he had, la, it's because he saw that keeping the Ahlul Bayt prisoners in Sham was a danger to his throne, was a danger to his seat. Sayyida Zainab al-Kubra and Imam al-Sujjad shook the thrones of Bani Umayyah and the seat of the throne of Yazid from within Damascus, from within the dungeons and within the prisons, through the power of weeping for Imam al-Hussein, which is why he had to move them out of the capital. The narration mentions that when Sayyida Zainab al-Kubra reached Karbala al-Muqaddas, she threw herself on the grave of Imam al-Hussein. She cried out to him, "Brother, my brother, Ya Aba Abdullah, you sleep in the lands of Karbala with my brother Abbas. As you slept in the lands of Karbala, my brother Hussein asked me what I went through. My brother Hussein, they whipped me, Shibr whipped me on my back and he slapped me, oh my brother Hussein. They took us as prisoners and they humiliated us from market to market, from city to city and village to village, as if we were slaves that have been carried from within the kuffar. My brother Hussein." Sayyida Zainab is now complaining about her sorrows and her tragedies to Abu Abdullah. She says to Imam al-Hussein, "I have two amanat for you. There are two amanas that I had for you. One of them I shall return back to you, and the second one, my brother Hussein, do not ask me about it. What are these two amana Sayyida Zainab is talking about? She says to him, oh my brother Aba Abdullah, as for the first amana, your daughter Sayyida Ruqayya, your daughter Ruqayya, this young daughter of yours who you had left as a trust within my care, today everyone from the women has returned back to you, but your daughter Ruqayya has not returned. Where is this amana? Where is this trust of Imam al-Hussein? Sayyida Zainab says that this trust of yours, this 3-year-old daughter, we had to leave her within the dungeons of Sham. We had to bury her within the prisons. She was not able to take the tragedy, she was not able to take the intensity of the beatings and the intensity of the insults. We left her behind. Allah, Allah, what is the second amana that Sayyida Zainab is talking about? The narration mentions that from underneath her abba, she removes the head of Imam al-Hussein. This head of Abu Abdullah that was carried on a spear from city to city. This head of Imam al-Hussein, which was struck by the rod by Ubaidullah ibn Abbas, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, this blessed head of Imam al-Hussein, which was hit by Yazid by a wooden rod. This head of Imam al-Hussein has now returned to Karbala. Zainab is weeping, Imam Sajjad is weeping, Kulthum is weeping. The return of the head to Karbala, the return of the blessed head of Sayyid Shabab Ahl al-Jannah. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون ولعنة الله على أعداء آل محمد من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين.